Hello, good morning, everyone. So let's have our daily briefing for today. And let's have a quick market recap on yesterday's data. Okay, so first things, we have the unemployment rate for UK for the month of September. So the previous and the market forecast same at 4.5%, and the release time yesterday it was 3 p.m. And the actual data, it was 4.3%. The actual data is actually better comparing the previous data and then the forecasted. And followed by the claimant count change for UK as well for the month of October. So the previous is negative 51.1K, and the market forecast is negative 30K. Same goes with the release time, 3 p.m. And the actual data, it's negative 4.9 or 14.9K. So overall, to summarize the data for UK, so it was actually better. It beats the market forecast. Same goes with the employment change. So let's take a look on what happened on the GBP USD to be specific. So on the 15 minutes time frame, we can clearly see here that the strong momentum of the data or the price of the British pound was helped due to the data for UK last night. So from this territory around the 1.34, it went up sharply around the 1.3471 territory. So that's around 50 pips, or roughly 48.6 pips in just one move. So that is why the price of British pound against the dollar goes up, but suddenly it was actually limited due to the data of US dollar last night. And followed by the employment change for Eurozone yearly basis for the third quarter. So the previous data is 1.8%, and the market forecast at 2.2%. And the release time last night, it's 6 p.m. And the actual data, it was 2%. So it was actually not a good data for them since they're forecasting it at a much higher. But if we're going to compare this one on the previous data, it's 1.8%. So it's actually slightly higher, around for about 0.2%. And also the quarterly basis for employment change, 0.7% for the previous data, and the market forecast at 0.4%. And the actual data, it's 0.9%. And we also have the gross domestic product quarterly basis for the third quarter for Eurozone. So the previous data is 2.1%, and the market forecast at 2.2%. So for the actual data, it's still unchanged. Did not beat the market forecast. So the actual data is 2.2%. And we also have the yearly basis for the GDP for Eurozone. So the previous data is 14.2%, and the market forecast at 3.7%. So the actual data, it's 3.7%, but this one is very alarming in my opinion for the Eurozone since the yearly basis for the last third quarter was 14.2%. But there's a sudden decline on the actual data for about 3.7%. So let's take a look on what happened on the euro dollar to be specific. So during the 15 minutes time frame yesterday, we can clearly see that the price of the euro dollar is on the bearish momentum. So it started around the 1.1384, and it went down all the way to 1.1310. So which means that for the whole session last night, it's on the bearish momentum. And one of the factors as well that the price of the euro dollar goes down is because of the data for the US last night. And as of this moment, the price keeps on declining. And during the Asian session, around the price of the euro dollar is around the 1.1280 territory. And the last one is the retail sales data for US. So if you can still remember, I mentioned that this data yesterday will be the main catalysts for the whole currencies. So definitely, this data created a volatility in some financial products, and a lot of currencies, other financial products were actually affected with this one. So we have the monthly basis for the October retail sales for US. So the previous is 0.7%, and the market forecast at 1.2%. And the release time is 9:30 p.m. last night. And the actual data, it was 1.7%. So obviously, the actual data is higher than the market forecast. And the previous data. So the retail sales for a monthly basis for US was actually up for about 1.1%. And this data created the volatility, and particularly in some financial products. So let's take a look on what happened on some products right here. So first thing is the British pound against the dollar. So I mentioned earlier that the price of the British pound against the dollar goes up, but suddenly it was limited due to the data for the US. So right here, after the release of the retail sales, the British pound goes down at 1.3420. So the price went down around the 1.3420, which means that the value of the British pound against the dollar was actually traded back and forth around the 1.3470 all the way right here, around the 1.3422. And as of this moment, the price of the British pound against the dollar is around the 1.34 and 14. Next thing is euro dollar. So as I mentioned earlier, that this one is also affected after the release. So let me just zoom it in. So the price goes down around here. So from 1.1368 territory, it went down sharply around the 1.33 or 1.1331 rather. Followed by gold. So let me just clear this one. So for the past couple of weeks, the price of gold is on the upside momentum due to the inflation effect for the US, but this one was definitely affected, and it went down sharply after the retail sales data. So started around this territory around 1876, and it went down sharply for the whole US session around 1849, and that's around 271 pips. So this one is very volatile for the gold, and as of this moment, the price is hovering around the 1853. So what happened on the US retail sales is obviously, as we all know, it's holiday season, and it means that a lot of people, to be specific in America, will buy a lot of things to prepare for the upcoming holidays to avoid supply shortage. So that is why the retail sales goes up last night for the US. And also some schools are already back, so which means that supplies for schools is also up for this month. So for today's economic data, during the European session, we have to focus on the inflation rate for UK yearly basis, and also the inflation rate monthly basis for the month of October. And 6 p.m. we have inflation rate for Eurozone yearly basis for the month of October as well. And for the US session, we actually have a handful of data. So 9:30 p.m. we have inflation rate for Canada yearly basis and monthly basis for the month of October, and followed by the housing starts for the month of October, and also building permits for the month of October as well. And for our key product for the day, first things we have the British pound against the dollar. So later at 3 p.m., we have to pay attention on the inflation rate. So we can clearly see here that the previous data is 3.1%, and the market consensus or the market forecast is 3.9. So it means that the inflation rate is expected to be much higher compared to the previous data. And also the core data or the core inflation rate is expected to be much higher as well for about 0.1%. So from 2.9, it is expected to be at 3%. So the current price of the British pound against the dollar is around the 1.3424. And in my opinion, I will be looking for short-term trades on the upside around the 1.3415, and with a possible targets around this area, 1.3428. And second option is I will be looking at this price as well around the 1.3401, with a possible targets around the 1.3415, especially if the price beat the market expectation or the data beat the market expectations later for UK. So let's see what will happen. Last one is we have the USD against Canadian dollar. So as of this moment, the current price is 1.2563. But if we're going to pay attention on the data, so the core inflation rate on the yearly basis is 3.7 for the previous one, and expected to be 3.5. And also the monthly basis is 0.3, and right here expected to be at 0.4. And the consumer price index on the yearly basis as well is 4.4 for your previous data, and it's expected to be much higher at 4.7%. So overall, if the data for Canada later beats the market expectations, then you might see the price of the USD CAD to go down. And as of this moment, it's around the 1.2563. But as we all know, one of the factors that affect the price of the USD CAD is oil. So if we're going to talk about the oil, let me just share my platform once again. So let me just switch this to crude oil. Okay. So right now, during the US session, the current price of oil is around the 79.08 per barrel. And personally, I don't trade oil, but the way I see it right now, because I'm watching it for a couple of weeks. So in my opinion, the price of oil is very fragile as of this moment because the demand of oil is unexpectedly strong recently, which means that the supply is insufficient. But for this week, I will not be too optimistic about oil prices because the higher the oil price, the greater the pressure on oil demand. And also, we have to take the news for US. They've announced this one recently that they will increase the production of oil that may surprise everyone next year. So which means that as more the supplies enter the market, the oil prices may rise. So I will be more cautious with this one, especially for trading. But personally, I don't trade this one. But in my opinion, you have to be cautious with this one, especially this week. So on the USD CAD rather. Okay. So if the price of oil triggers on the upside, it means that the possibility of this one or the trend for the USD CAD may go down since the CAD is correlated with oil. So it means that if the price is oil, the CAD is up, which means that the USD CAD might go down. So we have to be very careful with this one. So the today's resistance and support is 1.2583 and 1.2613, and the support is 1.2508 and 1.2462 respectively. All right, thank you everyone for joining our daily briefing for today. Stay safe and have a great day.